So this morning I was actually thinking about the emotion anger and forgiveness. So when we find ourselves probably angry at someone who hurt us in our lives, or maybe even angry at ourselves, the very first thing we tell ourselves is just forgive, just forgive, let things go, which I totally understand that part of it. But I have seen on my journey that before we get to the forgiveness part, I start to understand why the body feels angry. So the emotion anger, from my own lived experience, I have seen that is more so a protection mechanism from two things: sadness and pain. It might be emotional pain or it might be physical pain. So the reason why the body uses it as a protection mechanism is because the body doesn't yet have the capacity, right? And doesn't trust that you can access that sadness and pain without shutting down. So what the body does, what the intelligence of the nervous system does, is it uses anger to protect from the heavier emotions. Because anger is loud, right? But it's not sustainable. That's the thing about anger. And it made me thinking about anger and forgiveness. And for me in my life, I had to understand why I was angry. Once I started to understand why I was angry, then I started to create capacity, right? To create capacity and trust between my brain and my body. Once those two things were established, it was easier for the sadness and the pain to come up to process safely. Now, the body doesn't need anger anymore because now there's trust between your brain and your body, and there's capacity. So my friend, the next time you feel anger towards yourself or towards another person, before you go ahead to try to think about forgiving them or forgiving yourself for the hurt you're feeling in your life, before you get to that part, start to understand why you're angry, understand why your body keeps going to anger, and start to see how you can create internal trust for that sadness and that pain to come up to process safely. Then you can, once you understand the anger, it's easier to forgive, because if you're still angry at the situation and you go ahead and forgive, it poses a sort of self-abandonment to your body, and that anger just turns to resentment because your body hasn't fully processed what's really there.